Hello, everybody. Welcome to AMAZE Live. I'm Christine Coe, and I run the Facebook Lives for AMAZE parents. And I am so delighted to be talking today with the artist and animator, Kay Kuipers. Hi, Kay. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Good. What is this beautiful backdrop that you have behind you? I have to ask, it's like a mural or a painting or something. It looks awesome.
It's a tapestry that one of my college roommates had. Her mom gave it to her,
It's
and
beautiful.
somehow I ended up with it.
I love it. Well, it looks perfect. It's way more cool than my backdrop, so we'll just, that's just how it's going to be. So, as we're, a lot of people come to this broadcast later, but if you're just joining us, please feel free to drop questions or comments for Kay or me in the comment section. And if we're still live while you see this, then we'll get to it then. Or I'll also loop back in and check in after the broadcast because a lot of people do come to this later. So, Kay, I would love for you, you just to give a little framing for people as they're joining. You are the artist and animator behind the award-winning, multiple award-winning, right, video. My friend is transgender, and we'll talk more about that in a second. But I would just love for you to give people some background about your history with art and how that all came to pass.
Well, I don't know. I always made art, which I think a lot of kids make art, and I just kept doing it. And then I paid a lot of money to go to school to keep doing it. I went to school at University of the Arts in Philadelphia, studied animation, and so I've been working as a freelance artist for the last several years.
And you was drawing and kind of, it seems almost like not enough to call it doodling, but has that always been your medium? Because I think that work it looks awesome. It's really cool.
Thanks. I'm okay with calling it doodling.
Okay.
I think people underestimate the power of doodles sometimes to express bigger things. But I've always drawn cartoons. I actually reached a point that I think my favorite thing to do when I was in middle school and high school was to draw really silly doodles in my notes. But I just thought of those as kind of silly doodles, but I thought of myself as a really serious kind of artist. So I had
Yeah.
drawing pencils, and I experimented with oil painting and things like that. And then I don't know, I kind of reached a point that now my top medium is like a ballpoint pen. So it's like I regressed back to just no, doodles are fine. I can doodle.
Well, I love that. I mean, strip it down to kind of, the basic elements. And this reminds me, I don't know if you've heard of this person, but Brent Almond, who is a wonderful, blogger who we've worked with. His online profile is Designer Daddy, but he does really awesome doodles on Post-it notes and all sorts of other kinds of arts, but that puts together really cool videos of them. So I'll share those in the comments after because
that's funny because I had a Tumblr page that I have not updated in a long time, but it's called Dream Doodles on Sticky Notes, and I doodled either my dreams or the dreams other people would send me, and I made animated GIFs because the cool thing about sticky notes is that they stick to each other, so you can make a little flip book.
Yeah.
So I did that for a while, and I think that actually helped me get my first big animation job, which is a storyboarding job. But then a couple years after that, I reached out to Post-it Notes directly, and I got to do some advertisements with them using sticky notes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, so I'm going to link you worked on a really cool making of video for the video you did for AMAZE, and I loved watching it. And I just thought it was really cool how you talked about how important art was for, learning to express yourself and your emotions and your identity when you didn't see much of yourself reflected in the media. Can you talk a little bit about that? How old you were when you started really discovering the power of art for self-expression?
Yeah, I think by the time I was in maybe like I guess like sometime in elementary school, I kind of had it in my mind that I wanted to make cartoons and make art, and that was what I wanted to do. But I don't think I necessarily saw it as a medium for expression, because
Mm,
I guess maybe a 10-year-old isn't that introspective where they're thinking of all the things they need to sort out about their
right.
their life. But that did come kind of later on. I think I got really into Tim Burton, which a lot of like teenagers do, um, and I think that was helpful because like reading interviews with him, he was talking about how he never thought a whole lot about. Sorry, that's the washing machine.
Oh no.
But he thought a lot about. He never thought a lot about what the doodles meant. He did some doodles, and then people. That thing is going on a long time.
Oh, don't even worry about it. That's the power of, that's what happens when we're live. It's all good. It's all good.
But yeah, sorry. He didn't think a whole lot about like intellectualizing what the drawings meant. He just knew that they viscerally meant something to him, and that was kind of
Mm,
exciting to me because it then made me reevaluate some of the things that I had drawn when I was younger. So I'm maybe a pre at that point,
mm-hmm.
and I started to think like, well, okay, so I'm coming up with these characters. What do they mean? And then I start, you enter teenage years, lots of teen angst, really, and I really delved into just like psychoanalyzing what these things would mean. Usually after the fact, I would usually draw something and sit with it for a long time and think, okay, why did I do that? And it was
Mm,
helpful for me to begin to learn something more about myself, because there were recurring things that were coming up without me consciously really thinking about it.
mm-hmm.
And that was helpful getting through high school, because I don't think there were many people I could talk to about it, and there wasn't a whole lot of representation in the media that really said what I was going through. Like I said, I really liked Tim Burton, but that stuff was also just it was a jumping off point, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, so that that actually brings me to my next question. I mean, I think introspection, I mean, that's a huge part of being a teenager and kind of figuring out yourself. And that is like, there's got to be like necessary, slow, painful stumbling along the way. I think everybody has experienced that. But I wonder, now like years later, if there's something that you've thought of that you wished kind of the people, whether it's adults, peers, whatever in your life had communicated to you to kind of help navigate you through this period as you were trying to figure out, who you were like during that period.
I think I don't know. I think that the culture at large has changed a whole lot in the last like 10, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't necessarily. I can't really imagine any scenario where I could have been given exactly what I might have needed. But
Yeah.
I do think though, the few occasions that I did try to broach the subject of even just you know thinking of gender as a concept separate from like assigned sex, it was usually met with confusion, kind of
Mm-hmm.
um, a, almost like a joking kind of response,
Mm-hmm.
because people weren't taking it seriously. They just thought it was, you know,
A whim. Yeah.
pseudo intellectual ramblings or something
Yeah.
like. So I think what I would say is, if your kid is coming to you and saying something that you think sounds strange and maybe even silly, uh, you know, think about it and maybe take it seriously, because you might be hearing about it in 10 or 15 years.
Right. And I think it's also, one of the things that we talk a lot about with, parents at AMAZE. And I think part of it is that there's like a whole new vocabulary now that didn't exist for
Right.
people before, which I think creates a lot of like confusion or skepticism or whatever, is that it's I think as a parent you feel like you shouldn't be asking the questions, like, but I think it's okay to ask your kid a question more about something you don't understand, or if you know, like you said, if your kid is bringing a term to you that they've never heard, ask them more about it. I mean, I think that's a powerful way to kind of show trust and relationship with a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think kids right now are growing up in a completely different world
Yes.
than
Yes.
than you or I grew up in, and that's true of every generation. So I think it's helpful as an adult to think about the things that you were frustrated that your parents didn't understand, because
Yes.
you have a valuable lived experience, and you have more lived experience than your child, but your child has a different and unique lived experience that you don't necessarily understand.
Oh my gosh, put that on a t-shirt. That is
All the
you just like nailed it right there.
with all the gendering included.
Oh no, Kay, I just lost Kay for a sec. I don't know if he can.
Oh.
I don't know, Kay, if you can see me still.
Yeah.
Just reconnect when you can. For those who are just joining us, I'm talking to Kay Kuipers, who is the amazing artist and illustrator behind the wonderful AMAZE video, My Friend is Transgender. Kay, I'm hoping that you just click that link again and come back because we have more to talk about. But if you're just joining us, feel free to drop some questions in. I'm just going to send this. Oh, I think Kay is about to, we're rotated. Yep. Okay. I don't know if you could rotate that, but then we'll have you, I think you would rotate it to your right, and then we'd be good to go. There you go. We're back. Can you hear me, Kay?
Yeah.
Perfect.
There we go.
Yep. You're good. Yeah, you're good. You're good. So I was just telling people that we had, every now and then the internet kind of hates us. And so we had a brief break in signal there, but that we were just talking about, ways to support kids as they're, figuring out who they are in life. So if you're just joining us, welcome back. I have Kay back on the line, which is wonderful. So, Kay, I would love to switch to talk about the video, because one of the cool things I thought I learned through watching the making of video that you produced was that you looped in a bunch of creative friends into the production of that video. So can you talk a little bit more about that? Who were the people that were involved, and did you know them through art school? How did that all happen?
Yeah, it was it was a surprisingly really personal experience to make that video. I mean, obviously anytime you're making something, it's a personal thing, and it was a personal subject, but I had my friend Kayla Miller was the voice for Cassie in
Yes.
the video, and Kayla was I've known since high school, and they were actually probably the first person that I came out to. So,
wow. Okay.
and initially they weren't going to do the voice, but no, just circumstances came that they were available, and we were recording at another friend, Joe Avento's. He had a little recording studio to get clean recordings of the audio. Kayla was available. Kayla did the voice, and it was like, we should have known that would have been an emotional experience, but
for sure.
Yeah, so that was nice. And Kayla, like I said, I've known Kayla since high school, but we also did go to art school in Philadelphia together, so we've been close for a really long time. And my friend Jake Stanton did the music.
Right. Yes.
That was probably one of the best creative collaborative experiences I've really ever had with somebody. I'd known him since high school also, and since we were like 16, we kind of wanted to collaborate on something. I'm not a musician, but I think we always had it in our mind that we were going to do a music video or something, which has not happened yet, but this was a thing that I could come to him and be like, hey, can you put music on this? And his first take on it was much sillier. Like
Oh,
I think he really leaned into like it's a cartoon. So he like
right.
um so then I immediately was like, no, no, that's not what we're going for. And so we ended up like just sitting in his room and kind of going through the animatic like beat by beat and
Hmm.
hitting each emotional change in it. And it was just like a nice back and forth where we kind of, it was a good communication throughout the entire process of writing it. And then he went back and made some changes, and so that was a really good experience.
That is so awesome. I love the idea of it, and I'm glad that it's always great when, you're working on a creative project with somebody, and if it's not, if the first result isn't like quite how you envisioned it, you can go back and be professional about it and get it to where you need it to be. I have to ask you, like, did you even foresee, or was there any way? How did you feel when all the awards for this video started rolling in? I mean, it was kind of crazy. It was like a landslide. To me, anyway, on the outside, it felt like a lot of stuff was happening.
Yeah, it was, it kind of felt, it's funny because when I finished it, I had, it was so many like just sleepless nights. And I mean, I did have, like you said, a small team of creative people that I was working with, but it was a lot of it was just me sitting in my bedroom drawing on a lot of pieces of paper. And when I finished, I kind of went out. I saw a movie. I got dinner at a diner, and I kind of had like this private celebration. But the world at large had no idea that I did anything, and they didn't care. So
Yeah, yeah.
a couple months later, it was online, and it kind of blew up in a way that I nothing I had done before had. So that was exciting. And then it started getting into these festivals, and at first it was only a couple, but a couple that I was really excited about. It was in a festival in Belgrade, Serbia, and
Amazing.
was subtitled in Serbian, which is cool.
It's really cool.
um, and then yeah, then suddenly like it did kind of the following year just kind of it was stumbled into a whole bunch of them, and it's been really humbling and exciting. And I don't know if the next thing I do is necessarily going to um, hit the same note with people, because I mean I know that a lot of what people are responding to is that it's educational about something that people are finally interested in learning about.
Hmm.
And the next thing I do is probably just going to be a silly, weird, surreal thing that won't necessarily be hitting the same audience.
Hmm.
But it's been really nice to see that people are reacting to it, and it's meaning something to people. I've gotten a lot of nice responses from people at festivals and stuff.
Yeah, well, let's talk about response a little bit. In the making of video, you talk about, it was just awesome to receive, feedback from kids and from parents. Was there anything, is there anything that was like particularly surprising or touching or anything that you want to share? I know there's probably, a jumble of emails and direct messages and things, but, I'd love to hear some personal element to that.
Um, Most of what I'm hearing from kids is through the YouTube comments,
Mm. Hmm.
which one of the recurring ones there that I love is not even necessarily a positive comment, but it's like from kids saying like, I can't believe Jim is 17 and he doesn't know what transgender is. I'm 8 and I know what that is. I'm like, oh, well,
You're
he's only
like, yeah.
8. That's great. So the fact that there are some kids in some places in the country that don't necessarily need this to feel empathy and understanding is a win, I think.
Yes.
Um, but I know that's not even everywhere. So I'm hoping it's reaching other people. But it's gotten the most direct response I've gotten, like in person from people, has been parents that seem to really appreciate that Jim as a character doesn't understand completely and is open to grow
Hmm.
and learn, and he's not painted as completely irredeemable. Because
Hmm.
I'm thinking of one instance in particular, which was at the Durham Gay and Lesbian Film Festival in Durham, North Carolina. There was a woman that came up to me after the screening and said, I have a child in your shoes. And she's was already very emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to be like, oh, in my shoes. They're not in my shoes. But she was saying that she had a transgender child that she was trying her best to understand, and she said her child gets upset with her sometimes because she doesn't always get the pronouns right, but she's trying. Mm-hmm. And she was getting really emotional and saying that she was grateful that I was showing this character that could grow. And I don't know, I think the fact that she was at a festival like that, which was specifically for LGBT issues, I think it showed that, she loved her kid and she was trying. And that's really encouraging to me.
Well, I think, 100%. I think trying, and I think a lot of people, and maybe parents, especially, I don't know, or just people in general, can be hindered into conversation and whatever because they're afraid of making mistakes, right? And I think that's like a real detriment. We have to try. I mean, even I, when we had our weird signal break thing, I made a pronoun stumble and I was kind of horrified with myself for a moment. And then I was like, whatever, it's fine. We're doing this. It's good. So I think that spirit of, continuing to learn and continuing to learn how to be more open and inclusive always is, that's like what we're striving for. I know we're running low on time here, so I just have one more question, and I feel like we've kind of touched it from different angles, but just to close, I would love if you have a recommendation or two for kids and parents who, are struggling to feel supported, like if they're, questioning, gender identity, if they're trying to understand, if they're not sure where to start, to try to understand, is there anything simple that you would recommend people, try to, as a place to start?
Anything simple, nothing simple.
Yeah, right.
Just listening to each other, and parents should listen to their kids, and kids should listen to their parents for, and hear their perspective, because, everyone has to understand that everyone's coming from things at a different angle. And I think the more dialogue there is, I think the better. I also kind of want to plug a documentary that I saw at one of these festivals.
Yeah.
It was at the New Haven International Film Festival in New Haven, Connecticut. It was called Little Miss Westie.
Okay.
I don't know if there's really a big distribution of it right now, but hopefully there's going to be. It followed this family that had two transgender kids. They thought they had a girl and a boy, but then they had a boy and a girl. Mm-hmm. And what was so remarkable about the documentary is how unremarkable them being transgender really was. It was kind of usual family dynamic stuff, and I would recommend it to any families that are really trying to move forward with their lives and trying to be like, oh no, this is completely changing my life somehow. And I don't know, life has ups and downs no matter what the circumstances. I thought it was a really great documentary. Little Miss.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll look it up and link it up in the comments after we finish up. And I also will link up a really wonderful Facebook Live that it's not wonderful because I did it. It was wonderful because the guest was amazing. But with a parent, it's on parenting a transgender child. And so my guest, Lauren Cruz-Leahy, really dug into, what it was like to go through that period of discovery and like how best to advocate. And there's a lot of like real nuts and bolts about, how to advocate in schools so your, kid feels supported, all sorts of good stuff in that. So I'll link that in the notes. Well, Kay, this was such a delight, and I want to thank you and thank you publicly for your perseverance. We tried this on Wednesday and had a lot of tech problems, and you were just patient and lovely, and you took time today again. So I really appreciate that. Thank you for sharing your story today.
Yeah, thanks for having me do it.
All right, take care.